Hi, I'm Joel Johnson. I'm the managing partner of Johnson Brunetti, and I'm really excited to be with you today because today I want to help you look at your retirement, your investments in a different way. You know, what we've found in helping thousands of families retire across the New England area is that many times the mistakes that they make are because of the way they either look at their investments or because of the way they behave when something unexpected happens. And so today what we're going to talk about is an important strategy. I'm going to call it chunking for just a minute before we get into it, where you can chunk your different retirement savings and maybe even events that happen during your retirement so that you have a lot more peace of mind. And peace of mind and a calm state of mind when it comes to retirement will help you navigate a better retirement and have a fantastic retirement income, maybe even more predictable retirement, which is so important. You know, I mentioned that we've helped a lot of families retire, and here's what we've seen at our firm. You know, you're only going to have one retirement. I'm only going to have one retirement. But what we've had the advantage of seeing is we've seen many people approach retirement. Let's say they're 5 or 10 years out. Then they get to that point where they're retiring. Then they get to that point where they go through retirement. Maybe even now they're 15 or 20 years after the event of their retirement. And we've been able to watch, like I said, thousands of families walk through that point in time. And so when you work with us, we're able to add some wisdom and some experience that I personally haven't had, but we've observed it with so many other families. And that way, when you get to these points in retirement, when it's not just about money, it's about important decisions that you need to make, it's about surprises, it's maybe about family issues that come up that you feel powerless over. We have seen that before, and we can't solve that problem, but we can walk with you through that problem. So I want to let you know that before we get into the content today, because it's really important that as you decide to work with someone to get that advice, to walk through retirement with you, that you work with someone that specializes in people that are getting either close to retirement or in retirement. We're not the only firm that does that, but it's really important that you work with a specialist. You know, if you had a heart issue or a bone issue, you wouldn't just go to a general practitioner. You wouldn't go to a doctor that helps, you know, teenagers from sports injuries or so on. You're going to go to somebody that specializes in your situation. And that's what I'm encouraging you today. No matter how much you get out of this particular video and this lesson we're doing today, work with somebody that specializes with people that are in your situation. So what we're going to talk about today is a 3-bucket strategy to manage your money in retirement. And it's not just about managing your money, it's managing different events that happen throughout retirement. But this 3-bucket strategy, I want you to really drill down on this as I walk you through this and think about your money and how you can position your money. And this applies to you whether you're already retired or whether you're coming up to retirement and really thinking about it. So let's get into these 3 buckets. So first of all, the buckets help us, again, what I mentioned earlier, chunk retirement in different ways. And I'm going to call this first bucket safe. This is your safe money. This is your money that no matter what happens, it can't go down. This could be money at the bank. It could be money in some type of an insurance product where you've got principal guaranteed. It could be in a money market, and even though technically money markets aren't 100% safe and guaranteed, I consider my money market funds safe money, but you want to have some money that's safe, where it can't go down, where no matter what happens out there in the market, whether it's a new war, whether it's some kind of a tariff situation or governmental intervention, whether it's an oil crunch where oil spikes, you know, and gasoline spikes to 2 or 3 times the prices that we pay today, whatever that is, you've got a chunk of money that isn't affected by that. Now, how does that advantage us in retirement? Well, first of all, it advantages us because we have some peace of mind about this money. You know, no matter what's happening with our other money, we know that there's a chunk that's safe. So I want you to think about how much should you have, and we're going to come back to this, how much should you have in safe money? Then the next bucket is income. And when you get into retirement, it's really what we say to our clients, and you've heard me say on TV before, it's all about income, right? So that second bucket is income. Now remember that, we're going to come back to that in just a minute. Our third bucket is growth. Now, the farther we go in this direction with our buckets, the more things can go up and down and react to short-term events. Think about it as a roller coaster. We've always had those, we've all experienced those times in the stock market where something happens and the market goes way down and then it comes way back up again and it feels like a roller coaster. Well, the farther we get this way, the more we're going to feel that roller coaster effect. So again, I want you to think about, and we can help you with this, how much of your money should be safe and completely insulated from all of this. Now, I've had people say to me before, well, Joel, I'm not a risk taker. Why can't I have all of my money safe? And some of you already know the answer to this question. It's because of inflation. We have to be able to give ourselves raises of 2, 3, 4% on average per year throughout retirement. And if we've got all of our money safe, earning in today's rates of return somewhere around 3 to 4%, we're not going to keep up with inflation, especially if inflation is running at 2.5 or 3%. So we've got to have some money out here on the risk scale. But again, we don't want to have so much money out here that we don't have that peace of mind. What you want to do is you want to position your money so you've got enough safe so you don't react to what's going on over here, but you don't want to have everything over on the safe side because then you're not protecting against inflation. Make sense? And by the way, if I asked you today, well, what's going to happen if the market goes down 30%? What are you going to do? Most people will say, well, I know I'll hang in there because the market will come back. But that's not how most people behave. So don't underestimate the emotions that take over when you're in retirement or close to retirement and that fear sets in. People do the wrong thing at the wrong time. A good financial planner is going to protect you from your behavior. So very quickly going through these buckets, you want to have enough so that you have the peace of mind of knowing that something is safe, that some of your money is safe. You want to generate income. So from your investments, you want to generate enough income to make up for a shortfall if you don't have enough between Social Security and pension and other guaranteed sources. And then you've got to keep some money on the growth side because you want to give yourself raises. And if you picture this in a different way, and some of you are probably already thinking this, from time to time you're going to move money from one bucket to another as your needs change. So we've got safety, we've got income, and we've got growth. And instead of making the mistake of what some people do, which is considering this one big pile of money and trying to manage it in that way, it's easier if you chunk it into these areas. Now, the other advantage you have if you chunk it into these areas is many of you are married or you have partners. And many times opposites attract, right? So my wife, Wendy, is very risk averse. She doesn't like risk. She doesn't want things to go up and down. When the market goes up and down, she just wants to know that in any given year, she hasn't lost any money. Well, this is a nice way for us to compromise. And I can show her here, Wendy, we've got a bunch of our money over here that's safe. And some of it's generating income if I'm in retirement. Right now, we don't need income from our investments. Some of it's generating income. And there's this money over here that's growth, but we don't need any of that money. We're okay if we don't touch that money for a while. And it gives her some peace of mind. If I have a risk appetite, if I like owning stocks or mutual funds that are exposed to the market, I'm also getting satisfied intellectually and emotionally because I know we've got some money set up for growth. So it's a good way to approach it if you have a partner where many times they approach money in a different way. Now, I want to have you look at this in a different way, and it's not really the same buckets, but it's a little bit of a different flavor here. Having short-term, medium-term, and long-term money. Now, this is a little bit like the buckets we just looked at a moment ago, but it's a little bit different. So I want you to think of this a little bit differently, and let's go through this. So what is short-term? Well, when I think of short-term, let's just say it's 0 to 2 years, okay? 0 to 2 years, if you have money that needs to be used in 0 to 2 years, whether that's to buy a vacation home, to fund grandchildren's education, it might be to help out a family member. It might just be money that you need. You know that you need some money over over the next 0 right now or to 2 years. That money should be what? Probably ought to be in that safe bucket. There's no reason to take any risk of principal in that 0 to 2 year area. Now, then we have this medium-term bucket, and I want you to forget a minute about income and growth. This is going to look like income and growth. It's going to be a little bit differently. I would say the medium term in our world is 3 to 7 years. Now, you could argue that it's a little bit different. Maybe you think it's 3 to 10 years or whatever, but just work with me here, okay? 3 to 7 years is money where we can afford to take some risk. We can have some of that volatility of the market. It can even weather some surprises, some real big shocks, okay? We know we might spend some of that money, might or will spend some of that money in the next 3 to 7 years. So it can be invested with some exposure to markets, some exposure to that volatility, that roller coaster I mentioned, but it's not way out on the long-term curve, okay? And what's gonna happen is, as you think about it, as you go through retirement, again, what are we talking about? We're talking about as we go through, and now maybe we're in year 3 of this chart, well, we're gonna move some money from somewhere over to that short-term bucket, because we probably always have some money in that short-term bucket. And then this money that's long-term money, let's just call it 8+ years, that can be invested quite aggressively. What gives us the peace of mind to be able to invest that money really aggressively? It's being able to have a big chunk of money that we don't need for at least 8 years. It's almost like we ignore what's going on over here. We can get real aggressive with us. We can buy growth stocks. We can buy maybe different types of investments, whether it's private equity, leveraged real estate, private debt. If you don't know what all that means, don't worry about it. Just think of more risky investments, because over the long term, we know historically they've performed better, but we've got to leave them alone because they might really be going up and down. And again, as time goes on and we reset, let's say I start this and I have this wonderful strategy and all the buckets are right in the first, as I get to retirement at age 65, as I go on, I'm probably going to reset this every once in a while. Now, I don't mean to make this too complicated, and hopefully I haven't. But what we're talking about here is ways to approach your retirement to protect you from the biggest risk that you face, which is you making an emotional decision at the wrong time. I had a couple clients a few years back, and COVID hit, right? And when COVID hit, what happened was a lot of people panicked. And the more people watched the news, the more they tended to get stressed. And I talked to them one time, and they wanted to just completely get out of the market. And I was able to talk to them and say, we had a good financial plan, we don't need to do that. And then about 6 weeks later or so, it probably was, I talked to them again, and it was the same discussion. And finally, the husband called me about another 6 weeks later. So this went on over the course of, let's just say, the summertime. And he said, Joel, just for my peace of mind, I won't name the name, but my spouse, let's just call her Mary. Mary is so nervous, it would just be better for our peace of mind at the house for us to just get out of the market. When did that happen? You can guess. You can guess what I'm going to say, right? It was, COVID hits, market goes way down, market comes back up. It was very quick, if you remember. It might not have felt like it. And when did they sell? Because as a financial advisor and as a fiduciary, yes, I have the power to invest their money the way we see fit in their best interest, but I'm still not going to ignore if they're panicking and so on. They sold right about here, okay? Very bright people, by the way, and they missed this entire return. They locked this loss in, which I think was about a 25%, 30% loss for the rest of their lives. They'll never get it back. Why? Their behavior, their emotions. And I'm telling you, we had a really good financial plan, and they had a bunch of money that was safe. So think about this bucket strategy, whether it's the first one we talked about where you've got some safe, some income, and some growth, whether it's the second one, thinking it in terms of time frames, it will protect you against your behavior. What are the lessons we've learned here today? Let's just recap really quick. First of all, think of your money in a different way. It'll help prevent you from making mistakes. It'll also help incorporate your money into a good financial plan. Think about time frames with your money and with your different investments, and think about the investments you have right now and see if you can assign them into that safe, income, or growth bucket, or the short-term 0 to 2 years, the 3 to 7 years, or the 8 years plus bucket. And if you can't do that right now, we would be glad to help you do that. Find a financial advisor. This is probably the most important thing I can say to you right now. We're not the only firm out there that does this, but find a financial advisor that specializes in people that are close to retirement or in retirement. Get their wisdom. If they work with people that are close to retirement or in retirement, they have seen many people walk the road you're about to walk, and they can help you navigate that from an emotional standpoint and from an investment standpoint. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I can't say how much that we appreciate your trust and confidence, those of you that are working with us already, that you've placed in us. I see it as a privilege and an honor and a heavy, heavy responsibility to help you get through retirement. Once again, I'm Joel Johnson. I'm the managing partner of a wonderful organization called Johnson Brunetti. We have a great team across New England to help you right now if you want our help.